Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Let's go ahead and continue.
What else we need to stick in here? All right. Okay. At another level, and this is where we began our discussion, and that is with the spiritual insight that we are all equally manifestations of the divine. So if that person that, to use American English, the person who bugs you, that's a very, very apt expression.
American English. I like that. Again, obviously, language is very cultural, regardless if many different countries speak it. You have obviously English. You got a British English. You have American English. I'm sure you have Chinese English, Japanese English, Indian English, German English, etc., etc. Obviously, where English is a little bit more pronounced than it should be, you'll have its own cultural English.
That person who bugs you, when you fail to accommodate that person, you suffer. If you accommodate that person, you don't suffer. But then how it may take some effort to become accommodating because that person bugs you so badly, they're so obnoxious, so difficult. But then there is the Vedantic solution. There's a relative solution, which is at the level of emotional growth, cultivating the value of accommodation. But the ultimate solution to this problem and the ultimate sadhana is the teachings of Vedanta that lead you to understand that the person who's bugging you is a form of Ishvara. Right? Well, what a way of understanding. Ishvara is bugging you in the form of that obnoxious person. You understand that from a Hindu standpoint, everything that exists is a form of Ishvara. In the famous Chandogya Upanishad, Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma, the Rishi says, and we can paraphrase that as everything indeed is a form of Ishvara, which means that the obnoxious person who bugs you is equally a manifestation of Ishvara as the people you love most. The people you love most, are they more a manifestation of Ishvara? And the person who bugs you is somehow less a manifestation of Ishvara? That doesn't make any sense. So, I've never suggested that, but it sounds interesting. Ishvara is bugging you. But you get the essence of that message. It sounds silly, I admit. But what a message that underlies that silly statement. Ishvara is bugging you in so many ways. When you get a headache, the headache is, we'll turn it even further, Ishvara Prasad. We call this prasada buddhi, an attitude of prasad. Prasad means whatever we receive from a sanctified altar. So usually food distributed after a puja is called prasad. And the prasad here means a gift from Ishvara. So if everything comes from Ishvara, then everything is Ishvara prasad. Headache is Ishvara prasad. Backache, Ishvara prasad. The girl at the checkout counter who's making mistakes and holding you up and you're getting late, Ishvara prasad. The person who bugs you endlessly, Ishvara prasad. And please note that from my teacher's point of view, prasad here can be taken very literally. He took that difficult ashram resident as an opportunity for our sadhana. So, what is the implication? The person who bugs you is someone who can help you a lot. It's the person who bugs you is the one who can help you develop this value of accommodation.
I completely understand what he's talking about. I mean, obviously, imagine, well, I mean, he said it very clearly, but let me see if I can put it in my own way. Essentially, if you're short-tempered and you're short-tempered, you get angry very easily. But if you look at it in the perspective that this short-temperedness or this person that makes you short-tempered is a test to make you a better person, it's a gift. Weird to say that. It's a way for you to challenge your short-tempered nature to become a better person. And maybe eventually that nothing can make you short-tempered anymore. I'm phrasing it in such a way, but I hope you understand the point. It's the fact that whatever you are lacking in life, if there's a person out there who tests your lackedness, a weird way to say that, use that as an opportunity to bring up your lacking in whatever that may be, so that you no longer lack in a particular manner. Short-temperedness, accommodation, graciousness, kindness, humbleness, etc. That's the way I took it too.
Imagine, this never happens, but imagine someone who grows up in such an environment where everything is just perfect, all the problems are gone, there's nothing that makes this person sad. You take that person who's lived such an idealistic lifetime and put him or her in the middle of a normal life, everything will bug them because they haven't had a chance to develop this value of accommodation.
I think I 100% agree with them. Again, this is something I noticed when I come from my country, my birth country, let me put it that way, to America. It is something that I see very much in America. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not majority, but I have a feeling it might become that. It seems like it's growing, this entitlement, this ungratefulness. I like those two words. I think those two words describe what is growing in America: entitlement and ungratefulness. You can see a lot of those things in America, especially in the media. And a lot of people who think they're oppressed have no idea what oppression is like. A lot of people who think they're poor have no idea what poor is like. Now, don't get me wrong, if you look at relative to within the United States, sure, they are somewhat oppressed, they are somewhat poor. But when you look at the reality of what is oppression and what is poor, they don't come even close to those two things. But when you have a perspective of what's just around you and how the little tiny things seem like oppression, and your inability to buy $100,000 cars or $2 billion homes, you're like, my gosh, I am poor. I can only afford this $250,000 house, but the $2 billion home, I am so poor. It seems like to me the perspective of some Americans, and it's so refreshing for me to see immigrants who come to the United States who want a betterment of their life and they become successful. Successful merely means that you're able to live a happy life. You're able to provide for your family. And it's so crazy that you hear, I know Mexicans for sure, I know certain groups of Asian people that they work here and to have enough money to send back home to provide for the family. And yet somehow Americans who work the same jobs are poor. Don't get me wrong, they're poor too, the Mexicans and certain groups of Asians, probably even maybe some Africans, I'm not sure, but there's a certain group of people that come in America who work and send money back home. They live poor, but they themselves think of them rich. This poorness that this immigrants come in here, they feel so rich. But when you an American look at their perspective, they are so poor, dirt poor. Because they have no idea what poor is. I speak too much.
So accommodation is developed when you see the value of accommodation, and accommodation is especially developed through the teachings of Advaita Vedanta, which can truly lead you to personally discover that the divinity that dwells within you dwells within every person equally. And with that discovery, with that realization, your relationship with others gets transformed. Let me just, we'll starting to wrap up now, but some good examples. Examples of accommodation. Some of you are politically liberal, some of you are politically conservative. You've noticed, of course, that those who are politically liberal are not very accommodating of those who are conservative, and vice versa. That's the divisiveness we see in politics in this country today. So if you're liberal or conservative, that's not the issue. And if the other person has a different perspective than you have, what do you lose in accommodating them?
Well, I'll say this. I can understand both perspective a bit. I'm not saying I fully understand it, but I do understand some portions of it. What a extremist would say is that if I give 1 inch, I will lose a lot. Essentially, any kind of extremes on both ends, mind you. That if you give them one, who knows what else it will lead to, or essentially saying that if you give them 1 inch, they'll take or 1 meter, they'll take a kilometer, or 1 inch, they'll take a mile. Meaning that you give them this one, then all of a sudden they'll want this one, then this one, then this one, then this one. All of a sudden you're giving them so many things, it just gets out of control. And then you also have the perspective of that it's already gone too far. We can't give them any more because they already have too much. We have to go back. We have to go back and retract some of these things or add some of the things that was removed. So basically they have too much. We need to retract some of the laws. Or there are people out there that says there's not enough laws. We need to add more. You cannot keep removing and removing and removing. You have to add back. Or you cannot add any more because it's too much. You have to remove some, depending on the perspective.
So they have a different perspective. So what? They share the same divinity that you possess. Or alternatively, by failing to accommodate them, you, look at this, by failing to accommodate those that you don't agree with politically, by failing to accommodate them, you empower them to bug you, right? That you actually turn them into enemies who threaten you, enemies who can make you feel, feel bad in some way. Why not what do you lose?
Can't exactly completely agree. I understand where it's coming from. The way I look at it, the way I prefer to look at it is, oh man, I had it. But anyways, I guess the problem here is the fact that it must come from both sides. Both must accommodate. In a sense, both sides must come to a middle ground where the right loses some, but gains some. The left loses some, but gains some. It's a middle ground between both sides are giving in and gaining something. You can't have one side lose, 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 because then you'll get an extreme version of this side to pull it all the way back. The way I see the political atmosphere in America is that the left has become so extreme that the right has becoming a bit extreme too. And also, I think there was apparently a study, again, don't believe it, but it seems to be true in my opinion, that more and more, at the very least maybe men, boys, are becoming more right-leaning because of how far the left has been pulling, you could say. It's kind of like, here's the center, and if I go here, it's left, and here it's right. So here's the center. I guess I'll use this finger. The political aisle has been pushed this way too much, that now that a lot of people are becoming more right to kind of push this thing back to the center. This is kind of a thing that happens politically. It leans to the right, then back to the left, then back to the right. It's a little, what I call a grandfather clock, I suppose, where the pendulum swings, but it keeps getting wider and wider to the point where it's so extreme. The swings are so extreme that you see it violently turn out. So yes, obviously you want to have a discussion. The way I look at it, here we go, is that there's nothing wrong with having a discussion and having a different point of view, because I believe most people want the best for people. But it's just how we implement it is different. That's the key there. It's, you have the conservative way of doing it and the liberal way of doing it. They both want the best for people, generally speaking, but how that gets approached is different. That's the only difference. Do you want a safer environment? The conservative and liberals are, heck yeah. But how do you approach it? Two different things. But they want the same outcome. That's the way I look at it.
And they have a they have a different political view than you do. What do you have to lose in just accommodating them? So they start talking about their political views. Yep. Okay. So if you argue with them, so if you resist, you don't want to accommodate them. In fact, you want to put them in their place, and you turn it into a big thing. Big, what do you call it? Tamasha. You create a big scene out of that. What does that accomplish? Contrary-wise, what do you lose by just accepting that is their perspective?
Okay, so accommodating here means just to listen to them. I 100% agree, yes. Absolutely. You got nothing to lose to listen. They might have some good ideas. They might have some bad ideas. As a matter of fact, you're able to talk to them or have a discussion about your point of view and how things should be approached. Again, both want the same outcome. The approach is different.
Well, you can use my guru strategy. He says if you're with somebody, and the context was not politics, the context was someone who's pushing their religious ideas on you. So political ideas can be pushed on you. Religious ideas can be pushed on you. And what he said is don't argue with them. Instead of arguing with them, you should give them something to eat and drink. Give them a cup of tea and some biscuits. Why? According to Puja Swamiji, as long as their mouth is full, they can't say anything.
Yeah, sure.
It's a good strategy. And certainly better than arguing. So you can accommodate those with other political views. You can accommodate, certainly you accommodate those of other religious views, including on that person who shows up at your door dressed in a white shirt and coat, dark coat, and carrying his black book. You know who. So, you can accommodate them. Give them a cup of tea and some biscuits. You can accommodate them. Here's a little bigger one, a little bit more challenging perhaps. Those who have sexualities that are different from your own, those who are lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender. What do you lose in accommodating them? Why resist? Why hurt? I'm sorry to make an issue of this, but in so many states, laws have been passed specifically to take rights away from some of these groups of people. What is the point of that?
I have not seen that. I think the problem that I think what he might be thinking of here is it's more along the lines of again, I'm speculating here, so mind that he's talking about, like, I guess there's certain people who wants to do certain things, but these do certain things that include some other group of people, but those group of people don't want to include them in it because it's not the same group of people. So and they say that, oh, they're not letting me in there because I'm not that group of people. Now, mind you, it has nothing to do with your skin color. Um, it deals with probably sex, more biological sex, though. So they're not including me in there, and this group of people don't want them in there because they're not the same biological sex. So this one person saying, well, they're infringing on my right. But this other group of people saying, no, you're infringing on our privacy, our right as well to your privacy. Mind you, of course, to the same sex, biological sex. So, and it can get really dangerous as well, because don't get me wrong, like, you're trans, bi, lesbian, whatever, you can do what you want, but this is something that I truly, genuinely believe you have no right to enforce your beliefs on anyone else. So, and there is such a thing as social norms, and that's what we've lived through the entirety of history. Social norms, cultural norms, and this is the standard. Anything other than those things are going to be the exception, and you're trying to break the social norms. It's kind of I'd say it's a very iffy thing, but at the same time, it's for the purposes of understanding, in my opinion, much better. Because if there's, I don't really want to get too much into it, but there are people out there who claim that it infringes on their rights, but we don't realize that it also infringes on other people's rights, because no one really talks about it. It's generally speaking, the one group of people is just very, very loud, and the other group of people is not. So I guess I'll just leave it like that. And then the forcing of one ideas on another group of people.
What is the harm in just accepting, accommodating? Why fight? Why discriminate? What is the benefit of doing that? Just to make the obvious, some people are threatened by that, and I can understand that. But by passing laws against them, are they going to go away? That's part of human culture. It always has been. They're not going away. So shouldn't we learn to accommodate? I don't mean you should like it. Just accommodate it. It's actually for your benefit. It won't bother you if you accommodate. This is a point. We can learn to be more accommodating. Well,
okay. So I guess the issues is there's a lot of issues in this. This is a very, very big topic. I obviously have my own perspective on this. Again, I'm not going to sit here and say you can't call yourself whatever you want. That's absolutely your right to do that, and you have have a right to ask people to call you that. But you have no right to demand people to call you that. So if you want your group of friends to call you whatever, then that's 100% fine by me. But you cannot demand other people who don't know you or who don't follow that same line of belief as you to say what you want them to say. And that's the biggest issue right now. Is there are, I don't know if Canada is like worse at this or not. I've heard maybe, but for example, they're wanting was it dead naming was one of the things where basically people who transition from male to transition from their from one sex to the other, even though they're still technically the other sex, they get a new name. So if you call them by their old name, you're dead naming them, and they kind of want to make that illegal. So you get arrested or fined for dead naming. Now I don't know if that has happened. Canada, I've heard maybe on that one, but I don't know for sure, and don't think of it for sure. And then there's the mispronouncing, mispronoun. That's really weird to say. If you don't use their preferred pronouns, they want that to be illegal too. Now again, these are extremes though. There are people out there who have preferred pronouns, but they don't enforce it. They only want their friends. They want their friends and people who are willing to say that, and it's fully acceptable. And I commend that. That's great. When you get to know people and you become friends with them, you might just change that. You know what? I'll call you your preferred pronoun because you've earned my trust. You've earned my trust really, my friendship as well. But I tend to go. I guess you could say. I don't know, classical? I don't know, traditional, I suppose, because it's just simplified. You have two categories, and underneath those categories are many, many branches of everything. It's kind of like Ishvara, how there's many different, there's Ishvara, and there's all the different kinds of perspectives of what is Ishvara. You know, if hopefully that came out clear.
That's nice. I make these notes before I come out here. Here's a perspective to help remove this divisiveness, to overcome this lack of accommodation, this resistance, this dividing us and them, liberals versus conservatives, these versus those, us versus them, our family versus others. To help remove that, we said from a religious standpoint, it is one and the same divinity within us all. Take it from a social standpoint. That's a specifically religious standpoint. At a social standpoint, it's a fact that we are all in this together. Is it not true? Do you have any choice? It's like if you're traveling on a bus or an airplane, do you have any choice over who's on that bus or airplane with you? You get no choice. So here, we have taken birth on this planet at this point in time, and there are plenty of people around that you may not like, but the fact is, you don't have any choice. We are in this together. And if we're in this together, wouldn't it make sense to be more cooperative? Common sense. We're all in this together. From a social standpoint, it makes sense to be more cooperative, to be more accommodating. From a religious standpoint, we are all manifestations of the same Ishvara, including the person who bugs you, form of Ishvara. And from a Vedantic standpoint, your true nature is consciousness non-separate from the consciousness illumining every single person's mind. This is the vastness of the vision of the ancient rishis. To have this perspective where you understand deeply, you realize completely the oneness of us all at this fundamental level, at this level of pure consciousness. That understanding that you are non-separate from the whole, Jivatma and Paramatma are identical. That perspective leads ultimately to this Sarvatma Bhava, and going back to the emotional perspective, a heart that has no limits. Big-heartedness times infinity, not times 1,000. There's still a limit. Big-heartedness times infinity. And it's my hope and prayer that in the coming year, our sadhana for us all can lead us at one level to become more accommodating for all of the reasons that we've just discussed, and at a spiritual level to come closer and closer to that ultimate recognition that we are all that same one Paramatma, that same one consciousness, and therefore there's no basis whatsoever for any kind of divisiveness, any kind of conflict, any kind of us versus them. So let us pray for that, for us all and for everyone in the world, for the new year. Good. Now, before we conclude, I have some important announcements to share with you. First of all, I don't get an opportunity to do this often. I want to thank you for your generous financial support. You notice that you don't hear me asking for money. And it's because of you. I don't need to. You are generous, you are responsible, you continue to give and support the ashram. And for me, as the founder of this ashram, I just feel so grateful. I know many other institutions, they struggle, and it's difficult to get the necessary financial support. But here, we have a wonderful, generous and responsible community, so there's absolutely no problem. I am so grateful for your donations. Thank you. I'm really happy to announce that we are changing the organizational structure here. So far, most of the operation of this ashram has been on Vasanti's shoulder. You can see her sitting there. I'm sure she doesn't want to stand up. I won't make her stand up. But she has been here for many, many years, and in those years she has borne the responsibility of making this ashram grow and making this ashram function, not grow. And she has done brilliantly, but the time has come that she needs more freedom for her own studies, for her teaching. She teaches Sanskrit and she teaches other programs as well. She needs more freedom for all of those reasons. So, by the way, can I just invite you to let us express our gratitude to Vasanti for all she has given over the years. And she certainly deserves that gratitude. Anyway, to relieve her of this excess of responsibility, we now have 3 co-managers, and I would like to introduce them to you. And these 3 co-managers do have to stand up. First is Pinky Patel. Please stand up.
What a name, Pinky.
And second is Suresh Singh. And third is Jim Parmeter. So these 3 students are very dedicated and very capable. So whenever you come here, you notice that everything looks nice, well organized, maintained. It's because of the dedication of volunteers like our 3 co-managers. So with their help and the rest of you also, so there are they can't do everything on their own, so they will invite all of you to help where it's needed and appropriate. And in this way, we continue to operate our ashram. And I'm happy to say we continue without any paid staff. And I think that's wonderful, helps us keep our expenses down. So many, many thanks to our co-managers, many thanks to Vasanti for everything she's given over the years, and many thanks to all of you who volunteer for various projects here. Last announcement is a schedule change. So on Sundays, we've been having our Vedanta class, Shankara's Upadesha Sahasri, at 10 o'clock on Sunday.
I'm going to pause here. I'm going to watch the rest of this because I'm kind of curious as to how things are done over there. But if there's anything relevant to, I suppose, Vedanta, I will come back. Hold on. Okay, so he just talked about a lot of things in the ashram. It's very interesting. I was very curious as to, exactly what's going on in his particular area. So not really much else he talked about there. I'm kind of curious. I kind of do want to go visit, again, both his ashram as well as Sadhguru's ashram in Tennessee. Tennessee is closer, and New Jersey is definitely not close. But maybe it can happen sometimes. I don't know. Hopefully, one day, maybe I can. But anyways, it was a pretty long one. I can't quite remember if there's anything else I had to say at the end. Of course, yeah, accommodating is nice and fine. It's just that obviously both sides has to be kind of accommodating, and you can't keep being too accommodating because there are bad people out there who will take advantage of you, who have bad and evil intent. And I wonder what he would say to that, about people who take advantage of nice people who are very accommodating. Like obviously you don't have to be mean or bad towards them. You can still be nice, and you don't have to accommodate what they have to say, their demands. You can be nice, friendly, and just say, no, I'm sorry, I can't give you that. If you want some advice, I can accommodate that. If you want to talk, I can accommodate that. If you want money, I can't do that. If you want a place to stay, I can accommodate that, so long as you don't tear up the place. But if you do, then I can't accommodate that because you are financially, in a sense, robbing the place. So it's kind of like those kind of things, Obviously, it's like much of my advice that I give, or advice, also different perspectives, easier said than done, for sure. I will never ever deny that. It's easier to say things, oh yeah, just be accommodating, or be nice, be friendly, be humble. All very easy to say, but to do, implement, act, a little bit of a different story, but it's understandable. So long as you're working towards betterment of yourself, then, it's progress. Anyways, that's all I have to say about this. If you like my content, please consider subscribing, thumbs up, thumbs down below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next vid.